What's up, AP people? We have a video for you today on 5 important World War II conferences that you should be familiar with. So let's get going. We're going to start off talking about the Atlantic Charter. And this occurred in August of 1941. And it's important to note that World War II has been going on for just under 2 years at this point, and the U.S. has not entered the war. Remember, they enter the day after Pearl Harbor in December of 1941. So who is involved with the Atlantic Charter? Well, we have two main players here. The U.S., led by President FDR on the left sitting down, and Great Britain, led by Winston Churchill to FDR's left sitting there. Your right, FDR's left. And this was the first wartime meeting between the two individuals. They'd actually meet like 11 times, but this was the first time that the two of them meet. So what did they agree on? Well, they outlined the goals for post-World War II Europe and the world. And the goals included self-determination, lower trade barriers, and economic cooperation. They actually agreed on about 8 different items. And these 8 items are actually pretty similar to some of Wilson's 14 points. This idea of self-determination, where the ability for individuals and countries to determine their own form of government. All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit and go to Casablanca, the Casablanca Conference in January of 1943, which took place at Casablanca in Morocco. So now the U.S. is involved in World War II. They're actively fighting. And yet again, we have the U.S. led by FDR and Britain led by Churchill. You see the two of them sitting there again. Stalin could not attend. The Soviet Union had heavy fighting going on at that time. So what did they agree on? Well, the Casablanca Declaration stated that they called for an unconditional surrender of the Axis powers, and included Germany. So this was, again, kind of making plans for the end of the war. We're going to head over to Iran, the Tehran Conference, which happened in late November, early December of 1943. So the same year again. Who was involved? This time, we have Joseph Stalin joining FDR and Churchill. And here are what is known as the Big Three. And this is the first Big Three wartime meeting. Now, the Big Three usually refers to the U.S., Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, but also the individual leaders as well. So what did they agree on? Well, they agreed to invade Europe in 1944. This is really kind of lays the groundwork for the D-Day invasion in June of 1944. And then after Germany was defeated, the Soviet Union would join the war against Japan within about 3 months after the defeat of Germany. However, some issues did begin to develop. Stalin kind of makes it known here he wants to control parts of Eastern Europe, and he wants this buffer zone to kind of protect the Soviet Union from invasion. Keep in mind, the Soviet Union, or Russia, was invaded twice in the previous about 130, 140 years, once by Napoleon and then another time by Hitler. So Russia and the Soviet Union kind of wants to make sure that it won't get invaded again. And Poland will play a very important role in this. Okay, we're going to jump ahead to the Yalta Conference, which takes place in February of 1945. This is 2 months prior to FDR's death. So this will be the last meeting of the Big Three. And here are the Big Three again. And just look, if you kind of go back and look at some of the earlier pictures, FDR and Churchill, they both aged quite a bit during this time. I mean, FDR is looking really old there. That's what, being a president, especially during times of war, will do to you. So what did they agree on? Well, Stalin agreed to free elections in Europe, particularly Poland, and this never came true. Poland never has these free elections that Stalin promises. Also, the Soviet Union would join the United Nations, and this is where we see that Germany would be divided into different zones. Finally, the last conference you should be familiar with is the Potsdam Conference, which takes place in end of July, early August of 1945. So who is involved? We have the U.S., this time led by Truman, Britain, this time led by Attlee, and the Soviet Union still led by Stalin. So we have 2 new players at this meeting. Same 3 countries, 2 new players. So what did they discuss? Well, Japan was given an ultimatum to surrender. They had a short amount of time to surrender. Notice it said August 1945. August 9th is when the first atomic bomb was dropped. Now, at this meeting, Truman kind of hints to Stalin about a new weapon that the United States has. That new weapon is the atomic bomb. And Truman was very keen on holding Stalin to the agreements that were reached at Yalta. He viewed Yalta as a contract or as a pact, and he wanted to make sure that Stalin did not go back on that agreement. Some issues, of course, are developing with the war ending. This wartime alliance is beginning to develop, and the differences that were there are really beginning to come to the surface now. The Potsdam Conference is really going to kind of lay the groundwork for the Cold War in Europe, particularly in Germany. All right, that's everything you need to know about World War II conferences. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good day, guys.